The crystal spires of Viridian Prime caught the morning light and broke it into thousands of dancing rainbows. Each tower hummed softly in harmony with its neighbors, creating music that flowed like water through the floating city. The Villani. People moved gracefully between the structures, their translucent bodies glowing with inner light as they tended to their gardens of singing stones. Elder Crystal Song Ethan stood on the highest platform of the central harmony, watching his people begin another peaceful day. His crystalline form was ancient by Villani standards, showing hairline fractures that caught and scattered light in beautiful patterns. Each crack told a story of wisdom gained through centuries of contemplation and care. The morning calm shattered when the communication array blazed to life with urgent signals from deep space. Resonance Lyra, a young scholar with bright silver coloring, materialized beside him in a cascade of worried harmonics. "Elder Ethan," she sang, her voice creating ripples of concern in the crystal around them. "The Galactic Council ship approaches. They demand immediate audience." Ethan felt his inner light dim. The Council rarely visited Viridian Prime, and when they did, it was never good news. He followed Lyra through the winding crystal passages to the reception chamber, where other elders were already gathering. Their combined presence filled the room with a complex symphony of anxiety and hope. The council delegation arrived like a storm. Warlord Thane Korthak stomped into the chamber, his massive armored form making the delicate crystal floor crack under his weight. Behind him came 3 other council members, each representing the military might that ruled their galaxy. The brass hegemon's metal body clinked with each step. The void touched moved like living shadow. The stone crusher's rocky hide scraped against the walls. "Villani," Thane Korthak growled, his voice so deep it made the crystals ring discordantly. "Your time of hiding behind pretty words and peaceful songs is over." Ethan stepped forward, his form brightening with courage despite his fear. "Welcome, honored council members. How may we serve the cause of galactic peace?" Thane Korthak laughed, a harsh sound that made several young Villani flee the chamber. "Peace? There is no peace, Crystal Singer. The hegemony of brass wages war against the Shadow Collective. The Stone Alliance battles the metal worlds, the galaxy burns while you sing lullabies. We grieve for those lost to violence," Ethan replied carefully. "But the Villani way teaches that adding more violence only creates greater suffering. We offer our healing songs, our environmental knowledge, our—" "You're nothing," the warlord interrupted. "You offer nothing of value. No weapons, no soldiers, no useful resources. You are parasites, feeding on the strength of others while contributing nothing to galactic security." The other elders began to sing in distress, their voices creating cascading notes of sorrow. Ethan raised his hand for silence. "We have lived in peace for 3,000 cycles. Our cities float in harmony. Our people know no hunger, no hatred, and no strength," the brass hegemon interjected, its metallic voice ringing like struck steel. "Weakness disguised as virtue. The galaxy has no place for those who cannot defend themselves or aid in defending others." Thane Korthak pulled out a crystalline tablet that glowed with official seals. "By order of the Galactic Council, the Villani species is hereby declared incompatible with galactic civilization. You have 30 standard galactic cycles to find a patron species willing and able to defend you and vouch for your value to the greater galaxy." The crystal chamber fell silent except for the sound of Ethan's heart-light flickering. "And if we cannot, then you will be cleansed from the galaxy," the warlord said simply. "No world will harbor you. No trade will flow to you. No protection will be offered. You will face the void alone, as all failed species must." The void touched, spoke for the first time, its whispered words somehow filling the entire chamber. "The council has spoken. 30 cycles. Find a patron or find oblivion." Without ceremony, the delegation turned and left, their heavy footsteps leaving cracks in the beautiful crystal floor. The Villani elders stood in stunned silence, their inner lights dim with shock and despair. Young Lyra was the first to speak. "Surely someone will help us. The peaceful traders? The Garden Worlds Alliance?" Elder Moonhum, ancient even by Villani standards, sang a note of deep sadness. "Child, who would take such a risk? We offer no military aid, no advanced weapons, no strategic resources. What patron would accept us knowing the Council's displeasure? Athon moved to the great window that looked out over their floating city. Below, Villani children played in pools of liquid light while their parents tended crystal gardens that sang with life. None of them knew yet that their entire world was about to change forever. "We must try," he said quietly. "Send messages to every known species. Someone, somewhere, might see value in what we are rather than what we are not." Over the following days, the response was swift and unanimous. The peaceful traders sent regrets, explaining they could not risk their commercial relationships. The garden worlds claimed they lacked military capability to protect themselves, let alone others. The Free Worlds Republic, the Star Kingdoms, the merchant guilds, all sent polite refusals. Some responses were less polite. The Iron Fleet sent a single word: weaklings. The battle lords didn't even reply. As the days turned into weeks, despair settled over Viridian Prime like a heavy mist. The Villani had lived for millennia believing that beauty, harmony, and peace were valuable in themselves. The galaxy had just told them they were wrong. Families began making preparations for the unthinkable. Some spoke of hiding in deep space. Others suggested surrendering to the Council's will. A few radical voices even whispered about learning to fight, though none of them could imagine actually raising weapons against another living being. Athon spent long hours in meditation, seeking guidance from the great harmony that connected all Villani souls. But even the ancient wisdom of his people offered no solution. They were what they were, beings of peace, beauty, and gentle knowledge. They could not become warriors overnight, and they could not hide from the galaxy forever. It was young Lyra who brought the final piece of hope, thin as crystal thread but still unbroken. She appeared before the Elder Council carrying a data crystal that pulsed with nervous energy. "I have searched through every record, every database, every mention of species beyond the Council's reach," she sang, her voice trembling with exhaustion and desperate hope. "There is one more possibility." The elders leaned forward, their combined attention making the air shimmer with anticipation. "They are called humans," Lyra continued. "They live on a world called Earth, far from the major trade routes. The galactic databases call them Deathworlders, primitives who evolved on a planet so dangerous that it twisted their psychology." Elder Moonhum's light flickered with confusion. "How could such beings help us?" Lyra's form brightened slightly. "The reports are strange. They are known for three things that make no sense to the Council. They persist beyond all reason when facing impossible odds. They form emotional bonds with other species and treat them as family. And they have an unusual habit of protecting creatures weaker than themselves, even at great cost." The chamber fell quiet. The description was so alien, to Council thinking that it seemed almost fictional. "They are dismissed by the galaxy as too primitive and too irrational," Lyra concluded. "But perhaps irrationality is what we need now." Ethan looked around at his fellow elders, seeing the same desperate hope in their crystalline faces. It was the longest of long shots, a gamble that made no logical sense. But logic had already failed them. "Prepare a diplomatic vessel," he said finally. "We go to Earth." The journey to Earth took 12 days through hyperspace, each one filled with growing doubt. The Villani diplomatic ship Harmony's Echo was designed for beauty rather than speed, its crystal hull refracting starlight into gorgeous patterns that no one aboard felt like appreciating. Harmony Zeph, the young diplomat chosen for this desperate mission, spent hours studying human data while his crystalline body grew dimmer with stress. The information was confusing and often contradictory. Humans were described as violent predators who somehow kept other species as beloved companions. They lived on a world that would kill most galactic citizens within hours, yet they welcomed visitors with elaborate social rituals called hospitality. "It makes no sense," he sang to his aide, an elderly technician named Cord Minor. "They are said to form bonds with creatures they call pets, animals that serve no economic or military purpose. They spend resources caring for these creatures even when old or sick. Why would any species waste energy this way? Cord Miner's inner light pulsed with uncertainty. Perhaps the data is corrupted. Or perhaps Deathworlders think differently than civilized beings. The ship's navigation array chimed softly, announcing their arrival in the Sol system. Through the crystal viewports, they could see a yellow star surrounded by several worlds. The third planet glowed blue and green and white, beautiful in a wild, untamed way that made their crystal hearts race with fear. "That is Earth," Zeph whispered. "It looks so alive." No sooner had they dropped out of hyperspace than their communications array filled with contact signals. The humans had detected them instantly and were attempting to establish communication. Zeph activated the universal translator, unsure what to expect. "Unknown vessel, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Nations Xenological Division. Welcome to the Sol system. Do you require assistance?" Zeph blinked in surprise. The first words from these supposed primitives were an offer of help. "This is Harmony Zeph of the Villani people. We request diplomatic contact." "Of course," came the immediate reply. "We're honored by your visit. Please follow our navigation beacon to Luna Station, that's our moon. We have facilities there that can be adapted to your environmental needs." As their ship approached the lunar station, Zeph marveled at what he saw. The human construction was unlike anything in the Council databases. Instead of the massive, imposing structures favored by most galactic civilizations, human buildings seemed to grow organically from the lunar surface. They were functional, yet graceful, strong, yet somehow welcoming. The docking process revealed the first hint of human adaptability. Within hours of their arrival, human engineers had modified an entire section of the station to accommodate Villani atmospheric and gravitational needs. The speed and efficiency was remarkable, but more surprising was the careful attention to aesthetic details. They had even installed crystal resonance chambers so the Villani would feel comfortable. Captain Chen met them at the airlock, and Zeph got his first look at a human. She was smaller than he had expected, with brown skin and dark hair pulled back, in a practical style. Her clothing was simple but well made. What struck him most was her expression, open curiosity mixed with genuine warmth. "Welcome to Luna Station," she said, offering what the databases called a smile. "I hope the accommodations are suitable. Our engineers worked through the night to prepare them." Zeph felt his crystalline form brightening despite his nervousness. "They are beautiful, but I must ask, why such effort for strangers?" Chen's smile widened. "Because that's what you do for guests. Come, let's get you settled, and then you can tell us what brings you so far from home." The meeting room they were led to was a perfect blend of human efficiency and Villani aesthetics. Soft lighting, comfortable seating, and walls that had been treated with some kind of resonant material that made Zeph's natural harmonics sound fuller and richer. The attention to detail was overwhelming. "Now then," Chen said as they settled, in around a circular table that encouraged equality rather than hierarchy, "what can we do for you?" Zeph took a deep breath and began to explain their situation. He told her about the Council's ultimatum, about the search for a patron species, about the rejection after rejection they had faced. Throughout his tale, Chen listened with an expression of growing concern and anger. "Let me understand this correctly," she said when he finished. "Your people are facing genocide because you won't participate in wars." "We cannot," Zeph explained. "Violence is against our fundamental nature. We would rather die than harm another sentient being." Chen was quiet for a long moment, and Zeph feared he had lost her. Then she spoke, and her voice carried a hard edge that reminded him that humans were indeed predators. "Captain," she said to her aide, a young man who had been taking notes throughout the meeting, "get me a direct line to President Santos. Priority 1. "Ma'am?" The aide looked confused. "We're about to make some very important promises," Chen said, her eyes never leaving Zeph's face. "And I want to make sure we can keep them." The next few hours passed in a blur of human activity that amazed Zeph. Messages flowed to and from, Earth at incredible speed. Officials appeared on communication screens from around their planet and from other worlds in their system. The humans seemed to operate on a level of coordinated urgency that rivaled any military organization he had ever observed. What stunned him most was the content of their discussions. No one asked what the Villani could offer in return. No one calculated profit margins or strategic advantages. Every conversation focused on the same two questions: how many Villani needed homes, and what did they need to survive and thrive? President. Santos herself appeared on the main screen late in the day, a woman with silver hair and eyes that held both kindness and steel. She listened to a brief summary of the situation, asked 3 pointed questions about Villani environmental needs, and then made a statement that changed everything. The United Nations of Earth hereby offers full sanctuary to any and all Villani people who require it. Furthermore, we extend this offer to any species facing genocide or persecution who seeks refuge. Earth will be a sanctuary world, defended by human determination and human technology. Zeph felt his inner light blazing with emotions he couldn't name. But why? You know nothing of us. We can offer no military aid, no advanced weapons, no— You can offer yourselves, Santos interrupted. You're living beings seeking to survive without harming others. That's all the qualification needed for our protection. The president continued, addressing concerns Zeph hadn't even thought to raise. We're already beginning preparations to accommodate your people. Dr. James Okafor's terraforming team is identifying suitable areas on Earth and our colonies. General Rodriguez is reviewing our defense capabilities to ensure we can protect 2 species instead of 1. And most importantly, we're designing communities where humans and Villani can live and work together, learning from each other. As the discussions continued, Zeph began to understand something the Council databases had missed about humans. They were indeed predators, but they were protective predators. Their aggression was directed outward, toward threats to their chosen family, and apparently, they had just chosen to adopt 800 million Villani as family. There is one thing I must tell you, Zeph said as the meeting wound down. The galaxy will laugh at this decision. They will say humans are too weak to protect, anyone too primitive to matter. The Council may even see this as an act of defiance. Captain Chen smiled, and this time there was something sharp in the expression. Let them laugh. Let them underestimate us. We've been underestimated before. President Santos nodded from her screen. The Council doesn't understand us yet. They see our world as too dangerous and our psychology as flawed. They don't realize that when humans choose to protect something, we become very dangerous indeed. As Zeph prepared to return to Viridian Prime with news of humanity's offer, he found himself marveling at the complexity of these beings. They were everything the databases said: persistent, protective, irrational. But they were also something the databases had missed entirely. They were hope. The journey home felt shorter, filled with planning rather than despair. When the Harmony's Echo arrived at Viridian Prime, Zeph carried with him detailed proposals for evacuation procedures, habitat, modifications, and cultural exchange programs. But most importantly, he carried the memory of Captain Chen's smile and President Santos's steel-edged promise. The galaxy expected the humans to fail. The Council anticipated the swift collapse of 2 weak species trying to help each other. They were all about to learn that humans had different ideas about weakness and strength. The evacuation of Viridian Prime began immediately after the UN Security Council's unanimous vote. President Santos had been right. It took exactly 6 hours for humanity to decide they would protect nearly 1 billion refugees from a species they had never met before. The speed of the decision shocked even human observers, who were used to their government's ability to act quickly in crisis situations. Dr. James Okafor stood in the Australian outback, watching his terraforming teams prepare the first Villani settlement. The red earth around him buzzed with activity as massive machines carved crystalline caverns into the ancient rock formations. Above ground, delicate spires grew like flowers, designed to catch and amplify the harmonic frequencies that were so important to Villani culture. It's beautiful, said Dr. Sarah Kim, his lead engineer. "But are we sure this will work? Their biology is so different from ours." Okafor nodded, checking his tablet, which showed real-time atmospheric readings from the test chambers. "The Volani need lower gravity, different air composition, and perfect acoustic resonance. But the beauty of human engineering is that we don't try to force other species to adapt to us, we adapt our environment to them." Across the planet, similar construction projects were underway. The Amazon basin was being fitted with floating crystal cities that would hover above the rainforest canopy. The Alps were being hollowed out to create mountain communities with perfect temperature control. Off-world human colonies were reshaping entire continents to accommodate their new neighbors. General Lisa Rodriguez stood in the Pentagon Situation Room, studying defensive scenarios that would have been unthinkable a month earlier. Her staff had run hundreds of simulations, each one focused on the same question: how do you protect a species that cannot fight back? "The traditional approach won't work," she told her assembled officers. "The Volani literally cannot engage in violence. They will die before they raise a weapon against another being. This means our defensive strategy must be absolute. We cannot allow any hostile force to reach them." Colonel Marcus Webb, her tactical advisor, highlighted several star charts on the main display. "We've positioned defense platforms throughout the Sol system and our outer colonies. Early warning networks are in place, but General, the Korthak fleet alone could overwhelm our current capabilities." Rodriguez smiled grimly. "That assumes they're facing only our current capabilities. We've been working with Volani scientists since the first refugees arrived. Their harmonic technology is unlike anything we've ever seen." On the screens around them, footage played of joint human-Volani engineering projects, crystal arrays that could amplify energy signals by orders of magnitude, resonance chambers that could disrupt electronic systems across vast distances, harmonic shields that turned incoming weapons fire into beautiful, deadly patterns of reflected energy. "The galaxy thinks we're primitives playing at being heroes," Rodriguez continued. "They're about to learn that humans excel at turning defensive positions into death traps for anyone stupid enough to attack what we're protecting." Meanwhile, in the Volani settlement areas, something remarkable was happening. Human children, who had initially been curious about their strange new neighbors, were now playing alongside young Volani in games that combined both species' natural abilities. The children created music together, human voices blending with Volani harmonics to produce sounds neither species could make alone. 8-year-old Maria Santos, no relation to the president, sat in a crystal garden with her new friend Bright, Melody, a young Volani whose translucent form sparkled like captured sunlight. They were working together on a school project about different types of homes. "Your house sings," Maria said with delight, listening to the harmonics that flowed through the crystal walls. "Mine just sits there." Bright Melody's internal light, pulsed with what humans were learning, was Volani laughter. "But your house is strong. It protects you from storms and cold. Our crystal homes are beautiful, but fragile." "Maybe we can build houses that sing and are strong," Maria suggested. "My dad's an engineer. He loves impossible projects." Such conversations were happening all across Earth as two species discovered they complemented each other in unexpected ways. Volani environmental science was helping humans heal damaged ecosystems. Human manufacturing techniques were creating crystal structures stronger than any the Volani had imagined possible. Most importantly, they were learning to think together in ways that neither species had achieved alone. Harmony Zeph, now serving as the first Volani ambassador to humanity, found himself amazed daily by human adaptability. He stood in the UN building in New York, watching human diplomats field calls from across the galaxy. Word of Earth's sanctuary offer had spread, and other species were taking notice. "Ambassador Zeph," said Secretary of State Jennifer Walsh as she finished a long conversation with representatives from the Gentle Builders, another species dismissed by the Council as too soft for galactic civilization. "The Builders are asking if our sanctuary offer extends to them as well." Zeph's form brightened with hope. "They are skilled engineers, but their people refuse to build weapons or military installations. The Council has been pressuring them for years to contribute to The war effort. Walsh smiled. Then they're exactly the kind of people we want as neighbors. Draft an invitation. And check with the Silent Watchers. I have a feeling they might be interested too. As news of each new species joining the growing alliance reached the Galactic Council, the initial amusement began turning to concern. Warlord Thane Korthak found himself reviewing intelligence reports that made no sense. How is this possible? He growled at his advisors. Earth should be collapsing under the resource strain. 800 million refugees should have bankrupted their primitive economy. Intelligence Chief Vratka presented his findings on a holographic display. My lord, the opposite appears to be true. Human worlds are experiencing unprecedented prosperity. Their technology is advancing at impossible rates, and most disturbing, they are establishing defensive positions that our military analysts cannot understand. The display showed images of crystal formations that grew like living things, energy readings that defied known physics, and manufacturing centers producing materials that shouldn't exist according to current galactic science. They're doing something new, Vratka continued, combining their adaptability with refugee knowledge to create hybrid technologies. Our spies report that humans and Volani working together have developed weapon systems that neither species possessed separately. Thane Korthak stood silent for a long moment studying the reports. Finally, he spoke. How many species have joined them? 17 at last count, my lord. All species the Council considered failures, too peaceful, too specialized, too cooperative to contribute to galactic military might. The warlord's armored fist crushed the datapad he was holding. Prepare the fleet, this ends now. Back on Earth, President Santos received the intelligence about Korthak fleet movements with calm determination. She stood in the newly built Crystal Gardens of New Geneva, where human and Volani leaders worked together in a command center that looked more like an art installation than a military facility. They're coming, she announced to the mixed assembly of humans, Volani, gentle builders, silent watchers, and dozen other species who now called Earth home. A full Council battle fleet under Warlord Thane Korthak's personal command. Elder Ethon's crystalline form pulsed with worried harmonics. Perhaps we should try negotiation one more time. The Volani have never wished to provoke conflict. General Rodriguez looked up from her tactical displays. With respect, Elder Ethon, they declared war on you the moment they issued their ultimatum. We're just choosing to fight it on our terms instead of theirs. President Santos nodded. The Council expects to find two weak species hoping for mercy. Instead, they're going to discover something new. A civilization built not on conquest, but on the revolutionary idea that the strong should protect the weak, and that different kinds of strength working together are more powerful than any individual force. She gestured to the displays around them, showing defense networks that spanned multiple star systems, ships that blended human engineering with alien innovations, and weapons that turned the galaxy's own aggression back against itself. The galaxy is about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon isn't our technology or our tactics, Santos concluded. It's our absolute refusal to abandon those who trust us with their lives. The Korthak war fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system like a steel storm, 300 vessels strong, representing the combined military might of the Galactic Council's most powerful members. Warlord Thane Korthak stood on the bridge of his flagship Inevitable Conquest, watching Earth grow larger on his tactical displays. Such a small, unremarkable system, he rumbled to his bridge crew. How could these primitives think they could challenge the Council's will? His intelligence, Officer Commander Skarlvex, checked the latest sensor readings with growing confusion. My lord, we're detecting defensive installations throughout the system, but they don't match any known weapon signatures. The energy patterns are strange. Thane Korthak studied the displays. Strange indeed. Instead of the massive battle, stations and weapons platforms he expected, the humans appeared to have built delicate crystalline structures that floated like jewelry between the planets, beautiful but hardly threatening. Probably some kind of sensor array, he decided. Destroy them first, then proceed to Earth. We'll make this quick and clean. The first attack run should have been simple. A squadron of Korthak destroyers moved toward the nearest crystal formation, weapons charging for a decisive strike. But as their energy beams struck the crystalline structure, something impossible happened. The crystal absorbed the weapon's fire and reflected it back, amplified and focused into devastating return strikes that tore through the destroyer's shields like they were made of paper. 3 ships died in the first exchange, their hulls cracking open to spill atmosphere and crew into the void. "What was that?" Thane Korthak roared. Before anyone could answer, the crystal formations throughout the system began to sing. The harmonic resonance was picked up by every ship's sensors, a complex musical pattern that seemed almost alive. Then the real attack began. The harmony wasn't just beautiful, it was weaponized. The resonance frequencies disrupted Korthak navigation systems, scrambled their communications, and somehow interfered with their weapons targeting. Half the fleet found themselves firing on their own allies as their computers reported false targets. "It's the Villani technology," Skarlvex realized with growing horror, "but amplified beyond anything in our databases. The humans have turned their harmonic crystals into system-wide weapons platforms." As the Korthak fleet struggled to adapt to the harmonic assault, the second wave of Earth's defenses activated. Ships emerged from behind asteroids and planetary shadows. But these weren't the crude, boxy vessels Korthak intelligence had reported. These ships flowed like living things, their hulls incorporating crystal matrices that made them shimmer and bend light around their edges. Captain Sarah Chen commanded the lead human vessel, now redesignated the UNS Harmony's shield in honor of their Villani allies. Her bridge crew was a mixture of humans, Villani, gentle builders, and silent watchers, all working together with an efficiency that would have impressed even Council military observers. "Villani Harmonic Grid is fully operational," reported Resonance, Lyra from her crystalline command station. "Enemy navigation is severely compromised. Gentle Builder Engineering reports all enhanced systems functioning perfectly," added Constructor Prime, his massive form interfacing directly with the ship's hybrid propulsion system, hull integrity at maximum, energy efficiency beyond original design parameters. Silent Watcher intelligence confirms enemy fleet composition and identifies primary command vessel, whispered Observer 9, her species' natural information gathering. Abilities enhanced by human computer networks. Chen smiled as she watched the tactical display. "All right, people. Let's show them what happens when you threaten our family." The battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic military history. The Korthak fleet, designed for overwhelming force against traditional opponents, found themselves fighting an enemy that turned their own strength against them. Harmonic weapons disrupted their formations. Crystal-enhanced human ships moved through space in impossible patterns. Most frustrating of all, their enemies seemed to anticipate every tactical decision. Thane Korthak realized too late that he wasn't fighting humans or Villani or any single species. He was fighting a completely new kind of civilization, one where different species contributed their unique strengths to create something greater than the sum of its parts. "My lord," Skarlvex reported with barely controlled panic, "we're receiving surrender demands from multiple enemy vessels. But they're not demanding our defeat. They're offering to accept our surrender and guarantee safe passage home." The warlord stared at his officer in disbelief. "They're winning, and they're offering us mercy." On Earth, President Santos watched the battle from the Crystal Gardens Command Center. The mixed assembly of species around her monitored every aspect of the engagement with calm professionalism. Elder Ethon's harmonics provided real-time coordination. Silent Watcher intelligence tracked enemy movements. Gentle Builder Engineering optimized defensive systems in real time. "Korthak fleet is taking heavy losses," General Rodriguez reported. "But I'm still getting confirmation that our forces are offering evacuation assistance to damaged enemy vessels." Santos nodded approvingly. "That's the point. We're not trying to conquer them. We're trying to teach them that there's another way." The lesson was being learned throughout the galaxy as news of the battle spread. Council member species were watching their most powerful military force being systematically dismantled by the species they had dismissed as worthless. But more shocking than the tactical defeat was the strategic message being sent. The humans and their allies weren't trying to destroy the Korthak fleet. They were trying to save it from itself. Ambassador Zeph found himself fielding communication requests from species across the galaxy. The peaceful traders wanted to establish formal diplomatic relations. The Garden Worlds Alliance was requesting defense treaties. Even some council member species were quietly reaching out through back channels. "They're scared," he reported to President Santos during one of their regular briefings. "The council built their power on the idea that might makes right, that the strong naturally dominate the weak. We're proving that cooperation can be stronger than conquest." As the battle in Sol system reached its climax, Warlord Thane Korthak faced a choice he had never imagined having to make. His fleet was broken, his tactical advantages negated, and his enemy was offering him something no council force had ever offered before: the chance to surrender with honor. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a personal message from the human president. She wishes to speak with you directly." Thane Korthak activated the channel, expecting to face gloating victors. Instead, he found himself looking at President Santos, who appeared genuinely concerned for his welfare. "Warlord," she said simply, "you came here to destroy refugees who asked for nothing but the right to exist in peace. You found instead a community willing to fight to the death to protect them. But we don't want your death. We want your understanding." Elbio gestured to the tactical displays that showed the battle's outcome. "Your ships are welcome to depart safely. Your wounded will receive medical care. Your dead will be honored according to Korthak traditions. All we ask in return is that you carry a message back to the council." Thane Korthak found his voice after a long moment. "What message?" "That the galaxy is changing," Santos replied. "That strength based on protecting others is greater than strength based on conquest, and that any species, any individual, who wants to be part of building something better instead of tearing things down will find a home among us." As the battered Korthak fleet limped away from Sol system, they carried with them the most dangerous weapon of all, an idea. The idea that civilization didn't have to be built on the suffering of the weak, that different kinds of people working together could achieve things none of them could accomplish alone. Throughout the galaxy, species that had never dared to dream of freedom began to hope. And on Earth, in the crystal gardens where human children still played with their alien friends, the real victory was just beginning. 6 months after the Battle of Sol, the galaxy looked very different from the charts Warlord Thane Korthak had studied during his long journey home. The Korthak High Command had listened to his report in stunned silence, struggling to comprehend how their most powerful fleet had been defeated not by superior weapons but by superior cooperation. "They offered medical aid to our wounded," he reported for the 3rd time, still hardly believing it himself. "Their hospital ships followed our retreat, treating Korthak soldiers with the same care they gave their own people. I have never seen anything like it in galactic warfare." High Commander Vrex Korth, ancient even by Korthak standards, studied the tactical recordings with narrowed eyes. "You say they could have destroyed our entire fleet?" "Easily," Thane Korthak admitted. "Their harmonic weapons disrupted our systems, at will. Their ships moved through space like they were dancing rather than fighting. But every time they had us at their mercy, they offered surrender terms instead of delivering killing blows. And now?" Thane Korthak activated a holographic display showing current galactic political alignments. Red areas showed council-controlled space, but increasingly large sections glowed with the blue-green color that had come to represent the Sanctuary Alliance. 47 species have formally joined the humans," he reported. "Not just the weak ones anymore. The Metal Workers Guild withdrew from the council last week. The Crystal Singers followed 2 days later. Even some of our own tributary species are requesting cultural exchange agreements with Earth." What the display couldn't show was the revolution in thinking that was spreading across the galaxy. On worlds that had been locked in endless cycles of conquest and defeat, people were beginning to ask dangerous questions. Why did the strong have to prey on the weak? What would happen if different species tried to help each other instead of fighting each other? On the human world of New Geneva, President Santos walked through the crystal gardens with Elder Ethan, marveling at how much had grown since their first desperate meetings. The floating crystal cities now housed not just Villani refugees, but a dozen other species who had found sanctuary among humanity. Children of 6 different worlds played together in the harmonic pools, creating music that no single species could have imagined. "Sometimes I wonder if we dreamed this," Ethan sang, his ancient voice carrying harmonics of wonder and gratitude. "6 months ago, my people faced extinction. Now we are part of something that is reshaping the galaxy." Santos smiled as she watched a human girl teaching a young gentle builder how to skip stones across the crystal pools. "We're not reshaping the galaxy. We're letting the galaxy show us what it could have been all along if we had been brave enough to try cooperation instead of conquest." The political revolution was being matched by a technological one. In laboratories across Earth and the Alliance worlds, mixed species research teams were making breakthroughs that individual civilizations had struggled with for centuries. Villani harmonic theory combined with human engineering to create energy systems of impossible efficiency. Silent Watcher information networks enhanced by human computer science produced communication systems that spanned galactic distances instantaneously. Gentle builder construction techniques merged with human adaptability to create cities that grew like living things. Dr. James Okafor stood in his latest project, a space habitat that existed partially in normal space and partially in hyperspace, using principles that no single species had understood before they started working together. The structure housed nearly 50,000 beings from 23 different worlds, all living in perfect environmental harmony. "It shouldn't be possible," he told his assistant, a Villani scientist named Deep Resonance who had become his closest collaborator. "The engineering requirements alone should have taken centuries to solve. But we didn't solve them alone," Deep Resonance sang back, her crystalline form pulsing with the satisfaction of successful creation. "Humans provided the adaptability and determination. My people contributed harmonic mathematics. The builders offered construction expertise. The Watchers shared information processing techniques. Together, we made the impossible routine." The success of the Sanctuary Alliance was forcing even the most stubborn council species to reconsider their approach. The Brass Hegemony, long considered the most militaristic faction after the Korthak, sent a secret diplomatic mission to Earth. Their ambassador, War Commander Thex, found himself in the unusual position of requesting an audience with beings, his databases still classified as primitive Deathworlders. Captain Chen, now promoted to Admiral in recognition of her role in the Sol defense, received the Brass Ambassador in a meeting room that had become famous throughout the galaxy. The circular table, designed to promote equality rather than hierarchy, had hosted diplomatic revolutions that were still spreading across known space. "Admiral Chen," Thex began, his metallic voice carefully modulated to show respect, "the hegemony wishes to explore possibilities for mutual cooperation." Chen smiled, the same warm expression that had first welcomed Harmony Zeph months earlier. "Of course. What can we do to help?" The simple question caught Thex off guard. In hegemony culture, diplomacy was about what you could extract from others, not what you could offer. "Help? That's what we do," Chen explained. "You're here because something isn't working for your people. Maybe we can find a solution together." What followed was a conversation that would have been unthinkable under the old galactic order. Thex found himself explaining the hegemony's real problems: resource shortages, internal conflicts, the exhaustion of endless warfare, while Chen and her multi-species team offered practical solutions based on cooperation rather than conquest. Similar conversations were happening throughout the galaxy as the new approach proved its worth. The Silent Watchers, long dismissed as useless pacifists, were now sought after for their information-gathering abilities. The Gentle Builders, previously ignored for their refusal to build weapons, were revolutionizing construction across dozens of worlds. Even species that had been considered extinct were emerging from hiding as word spread that the galaxy now had places where the weak could find protection. But perhaps the most important revolution was happening in the minds of individual beings, across thousands of worlds. On a Korthak military station, a young warrior named Skarvek read translated human literature and wondered why his species had never written stories about protecting others instead of conquering them. On a brass hegemony factory world, an engineer named Circuit Hum secretly designed manufacturing systems inspired by gentle builder techniques that eliminated waste and environmental damage. The final transformation came when the Galactic Council, depleted by defections and facing internal rebellion, requested a formal peace conference. The location chosen was neutral space, a system with no habitable worlds that had been turned into a meeting place by Joint Alliance engineering. President Santos arrived aboard the flagship of the Alliance fleet, accompanied by representatives from 63 species that now called themselves the Sanctuary Collective. Elder Ethan, whose people had started this revolution by refusing to die quietly, served as the collective's spiritual advisor. General Rodriguez commanded ships that included former enemies now working alongside their previous targets. The conference lasted 10 days and reshaped galactic civilization. The final treaty established principles that would have been laughable under the old order: the right of all species to exist in peace, the obligation of the strong to protect the weak, and the revolutionary idea that diversity made civilizations stronger rather than weaker. Warlord Thane Korthak, serving as the Council's chief negotiator, found himself signing documents that formalized everything his culture had opposed for millennia. But he had seen the alternative in action, and even his warrior's pride couldn't deny that the Alliance approach worked better than endless conquest. "You have won," he told Santos as they sealed the final agreements. "Not just this conflict, but the argument itself. The galaxy will never be the same." Santos looked around the conference chamber where beings from hundreds of worlds worked together to build a better future. Human children played with alien companions in specially designed recreational areas. Scientists from dozen species collaborated on projects that would benefit everyone. Most importantly, no one was afraid. "We didn't win," she corrected gently. "We all did. That was the point." Years later, historians would mark this moment as the end of the Age of Conquest and the beginning of the Age of Sanctuary. But for the beings who lived through it, the real victory was simpler and more profound. They had discovered that the galaxy was big enough for everyone, and that the strongest civilizations were those that made room for the weak to become strong, in their own ways. In the crystal gardens of Earth where it all began, human and Villani children still played together, creating harmonies that had never existed before two desperate species chose to trust each other. Their music carried across space to worlds where former enemies now worked as partners, where the weak found strength in unity, and where the greatest power in the galaxy was no longer the ability to destroy, but the courage to protect and the wisdom to include.